when we think about trust, I want you to keep in mind the first thing we must do, we must actually define what trust is. And so I'm gonna go to my whiteboard real quick, and I wanna talk to you about what trust really is. So think about for a minute, we think about what is trust, right? What is trust? And this is a powerful question. And I want you to define trust this way, right? To confidently believe that someone or something will do what you expected them or it to do. Now, this is an important definition. This is a very important definition because this is the framework for everything we do and deal with regard to trust. So I want you to look at a few things on here. So first of all, confidently believe. So trust has to do something to do with belief, which is very, very important. And also what you expected, right? So keep that in mind that this has to do with what you expected. So a lot of times, because we don't understand how trust is related to expectation, and then we also can make some very, very important mistakes about trust. So we understand it's tied to belief. We also understand it's tied to things that we expect. So let's break this down and unpack this a little bit. So one thing that we're really learning here that is very important is that the circle of trust is really centered around expectation, right? So this is really key. If the circle of trust is built around expectation, then I have to understand that expectation, right, must be managed. I must be able to manage my expectation if I want to manage trust. So this is a big thing to keep in mind, a big thing to understand. Some people expect something that was never agreed to. And when things don't work out, they blame trust. So let me say that one more time. Some people expect something that was never agreed to. And when things don't work out, they blame trust, right? So expectation must be managed. Expectation must have agreement, right? Expectation must be communicated, right? Before it could even be agreed to, right? So this is a big problem with trust, is because perhaps there was no expectation that was mutually agreed upon. And then when someone does something that you don't like or something that you feel, wasn't what you expected, then we say, that's why I don't trust, right? That's why I don't trust individuals, trust people, or what have you. So we must understand that expectation is very critical, because many times people are not able to communicate their expectation, right? So because they can't communicate their expectation, there can be no agreement, right? And if there's not an agreement, you can't really manage the expectation based on, what actually was agreed to. And you could even say you're managing and also evaluating, right? And you definitely can't evaluate till you communicate, you have some level of agreement. So you can see why the circle of trust being built around expectation is a very, very critical, truth, right? Because this is a big thing. If I am not clear on an expectation, and if two people aren't clear on that expectation, then you'll end up in a situation where trust is to blame, but really no one understood the same expectation of the relationship, of the requirement, of the obligation, whatever those things may be. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. When we think about trust, shows up in so many angles, right? So it could be relationship trust, it can be professional trust, it could be different responsibilities of life. We trust when we get in our car, we trust it to turn on and to drive and to, right? And sometimes it breaks our trust if the car is not acting like it's supposed to, right? We trust when we open the door, it'll swing open and we can walk through, right? We trust, there's other things we trust and we have expectations, but sometimes even those things have challenges. Sometimes something that should always work per se, it doesn't always work. And we don't stop trusting per se. We acknowledge that something is broken. We acknowledge that something needs to be repaired. Now that's very important to understand, right? When it comes to other things. So think about it for a minute. When we think about individuals, right? And these individuals actually, when they begin to break our trust, right? Whoever this person is, right? And if trust is broken here, sometimes we aren't able to see, how to deal with that, right? How to actually deal with that situation. Whereas what I was just talking about, if I have some sort of vehicle here, right? And this vehicle, for some reason, right, we have something that goes wrong, right? So if something breaks here, right, our first response is, how do we get it repaired? Right? How to repair becomes the question. Whereas over here, we think, how could you? Right? So something we have to understand about trust is that we must also come to an agreement that, like other things in life that we realize can break and that can present a problem or can go wrong, we have to leave room for that when we deal with people as well. We have to leave room for that in that sometimes there may be something that needs to be repaired, right? And so this is something that we'll talk about, but think about that for a minute, is that there's nothing in life that, most of the time, if it's anything we use, anything we have, we always understand that something can break. And if we think it can break, we know there's a process to repair it. We have to understand that with trust, that trust can be broken, but trust can also be repaired. So this is a very important thing, right? And one of the big things that we see and that we find out is that a lot of times, I want you to really consider this. So sometimes we live our life thinking about collecting evidence on why not to trust, right? Versus, learning to, let's say, communicate expectations and assess a person's behavior. Okay. So these are two very different approaches to life. So if I live my life collecting evidence, right, on why not to trust, then I will always find what I'm looking for, right? Because I am essentially focusing my energy and time on collecting evidence. Like I come into every relationship, I come into every job, I come into every, even thing that I'm trying to commit to myself. I come in with that mindset of why something's not going to work, why something can't happen, why something can't, be where it needs to be. And so as a result, I'll find that, right? I'll build a case against myself. I'll build a case against people. And a lot of times I've not set a clear expectation with an individual of what I'm looking for. But when they do anything that reminds me of something else that hurt me, then I actually become the judge and the jury, and I begin to isolate that individual as someone that I can't trust, when I never gave an expectation of my trust, of what I'm expecting, right? And so whatever they do, I can't really hold it against them because I never clearly communicated that that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want in this relationship, in this situation, right? In this particular thing. So we have to be careful of that versus learning to communicate, right? So this is the hard part, is a lot of people want people around them that they can trust, but few people want to communicate what they desire from an individual to be trustworthy. And so communication is very critical. And then once you've communicated, then you can assess a person's behavior. But see, if you jump from collecting evidence on why not to trust to assessing a person's behavior, you're going to always have a problem, right? Because you skipped a step of learning to communicate, right? When you learn to communicate what you're expecting, you're going to be much more successful in having things around you that you can trust better, right? So this is a very, very critical thing, a very, very crucial issue. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I want to talk to you about two different types of trust. So there is what I like to call expectation-based trust, right? Versus perfection-based trust. Now, this is a critical issue. We have to understand the difference between these two types of trust, because perfection-based trust is normally what we want from individuals. The individuals are not perfect, right? And perfection-based trust, I feel we can only give to God. And whatever your religious belief, whoever's watching this, I do believe in God. And there's some things you can put your absolute trust in, and it's a perfection-based trust that you trust God to be consistent at the things God said he would do, right? A God that cannot lie, right? A God that is always true. That doesn't mean we always get what we want. That doesn't mean things don't happen that we don't want. But in terms of anything God said, then we can trust he would do that, right? And so, God doesn't always, he doesn't go around speaking to everybody, but he did leave some instructions to tell us how he thinks, what he does. So I believe there's a perfection-based trust where God is concerned. When we talk about people, we talk about human beings, then we have to have an expectation-based trust. A trust that is built on expectations that we clearly communicate and we share and agree to. And then we learn how to manage that trust and that relationship based on different expectations that were fairly communicated by, two individuals or by a situation even, right? If you bought something that they told you is going to help you be able to do certain things at home, this chemical is going to clean your carpet, you expect it to do what you were promised. And if not, you go and you return that item, right? You think about how to fix it, you think about what to do, and you may not buy that thing again because you feel like it doesn't work. So we have to understand the difference between products, situations, equipment, things like that, processes versus people. When people, sometimes we run into people that have shown us they cannot meet an expectation that we have. And sometimes we have personal expectations, right? We have an expectation of the type of people we want to be around. Like, if I don't want to be around somebody who's cursing all the time and telling dirty jokes, that's an expectation I have. And so if I see someone can't live up to that expectation, I have every right to not connect with that person or to not be around that person, in my daily life, because that's not something that I want in my life. But this person never agreed. So it's not about trust. This person never told me they was going to change who they were and not do that anymore, right? But if someone told me that because I desired to have some sort of friendship with them, and then they kept breaking my expectation, well, then now I could say I have a problem trusting this individual, right? I have a problem believing confidently in this person to do what is expected, right? But it's because there was an agreement. So we have to be careful that we make sure there's some sort of agreement. We have to expect that people will still be people, and you can't put perfection-based trust on individuals. And sometimes, because we hold ourselves to a perfection standard that we can't live up to either, we can put that on other people. And so we start to put that on other people. We start to expect them to be perfect, right? We don't leave room for flaws. We don't leave room for mistake. So because the expectation is not realistic, then you always feel like your trust is broken. But the problem is your trust wasn't broken. It's your expectations were never real. So when your expectations aren't real, then you end up in a situation where trust ends up being the bad guy, and you start saying that's why I don't trust people. Well, no, the reason is you have the wrong expectations for people. You have the wrong expectations for individuals. You put things on people that are not fair. Then when they can't live up to it, which is something most of the time you can't live up to either, right? A lot of times what people want from other people, they're not able to live up to that themselves. Let me tell you a quick story. You ever heard the story about the snake? Let me go here. It's a little too big. If I could draw this here. So we're going to draw a little something here for a second, and I'm still talking about trust. And as I'm drawing this, I want you to think about the fact that human beings are all flawed. They're all limited, right? Human beings definitely are not going to be in a situation where everything is perfect, right? And we understand and know that. And so when we think about that, we have to make sure that the qualification that we're actually putting on people that come into our life is really fair, right? And so there's an interesting story, and see if I could kind of draw some of this here. So there's an interesting story, and I want to use it as, a part of what we're talking about today. And I'm actually drawing something that I actually don't care for here too much. So it's kind of hard to draw this because I don't care for these rascals much. But so here, and I want you to think about this. Let me bring this up a little bit. I want you to think about this a little bit, that when we start thinking about how we require different expectations of others, I want you to think for a minute about how we begin to develop our own perceptions of what is a person qualified to do to be our friend, right? To be someone that we actually trust. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And we all have requirements, right? And those requirements come from somewhere. And we start to set an expectation. And a lot of times that expectation is not what we think it is, right? We think we have a fair expectation, but we don't see that expectation actually came from something that maybe wasn't healthy, or something that we actually came through. And I'll put another one up here. and we got something that's maybe not healthy, and then we say, well, hey, I can't, that's why I don't trust, because look at what happened. Look at what took place. And so here's a story of a snake, right? And somebody actually came across a snake in the winter, let's say. And this snake, let's see what else I could put on this snake. It was almost frozen. And now this is a decent snake. So this snake was almost frozen, right? And so someone said, well, I'm going to try to help the snake, right? I'm going to try to see what I can do to help this snake. So he picked the snake up, put it in his chest, and started to warm the snake up. Snake was just about frozen, right? And brought it home, got it near a fire, start to warm things up, right? And as he got that snake warm and, really got the situation there under control, all at once, the snake rose up and bit him right in the chest, right? And when that snake rose up and bit him in the chest, the man was so shocked, right? Because of what he had done for the snake. And he began to, was on his way falling. This was a venomous snake. He wasn't able to get anywhere. And he cried out to the snake, how could you have bit me? Like, look at all that I've done. Like, I saved your life. And the snake made a staggering comment. And he says this, you knew I was a snake when you picked me up. Now, this is a staggering statement because it's a truth that comes out of this story is that we should expect people to be who they consistently show us they are, right? People don't have the same expectation that we do. And then they actually keep doing what they've always done. And we say they broke our trust. Well, no, some people you have to accept for who they are, right? As is often said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them, right? Believe them. Where we make a mistake is we keep trying not to believe what someone has already showed us who they are, right? And we can see the nature of who they are. We see their consistent behavior, and we keep trying to set a new expectation that they haven't agreed to. The snake never agreed to be trustworthy because he was saved, because you warmed him up, because you helped them. And people will feel that way. Well, look at what I've done. I helped you. I was there for you. And the person said, yeah, but I never agreed to become this person because you did all that, right? But in our mind, you should do this because look at all I've done. So the key is we have a disconnect between what we do for others and what we feel that means they should do for us. This is a big, big issue. The disconnect between these 2 points is why a lot of time people blame trust. See, so I don't trust people. No, trust is not the issue. The issue is you have a disconnect between what you do for others and what you feel that means they should do for you. They never agreed to that. There was never an expectation that was agreed upon. This is why we have a challenge really beginning to be successful where trust is concerned, because we don't understand what it is, and we don't understand that there's expectation-based trust and perfection-based trust. And when you understand there's expectation-based trust, and you also understand that you have to leave room if there's, so I'm gonna go back for a minute. We talked about the vehicle that breaks. And when the vehicle breaks, we understand that there's a process to get it repaired, right? So there's a process for repair, and there's also a payment or price, right? So think about that. When something breaks, there's a process to fix it. There's a price that it costs you, and you have to make a payment, right? So think about this. If we would apply this thinking to people too, that it's okay to realize an expectation-based trust, because we understand it's not perfection-based trust. If it's perfection-based trust, then, we say, how could you? Because you're supposed to be perfect. If it's expectation-based trust, we can realize that people are human, and we can expect already that people are flawed, that people can make a mistake, that people can drop the ball, because we already expect some of that with our trust. Then when something happens, we don't throw in the towel, we don't give up everything, but we understand, like, hey, now that this has happened, there's going to have to be a process to repair. There's going to be a price, and there's going to be a payment we have to make, right? For that trust. So people can't just say, well, hey, I'm not perfect, so don't judge me. Well, that's not fair, because if we had an agreement and there was an expectation and it was communicated and we agreed, well, then now there is a wrong. And I'm not some of these people that believe, the way society is going today, there is no wrong, like nothing's wrong. Everybody can do everything. Like, I identify with this, I identify with that. There's nothing that's wrong. There's nothing that's right. It's up to everyone's judgment call. I don't believe that. I believe there is a right. I believe there is a wrong. And that's the reason that I can know that I can be better. I can do better. That's the reason I know I can improve, is because there is a standard. There is something that means good, better. There is to me, it's hard to have that without God, right? Because what is the standard? Like, who's to say if my opinion is just as good as your opinion, right? So doesn't mean anything. There has to be a standard. That's my personal conviction. But either way, in a relationship or in a business situation or in a family situation, whatever it might be, when something happens where expectation is broken, there's a standard to go back to, because you can say, we agreed that we were gonna do things or handle things this way, and instead of doing this, you did that. And so the key is something that I want to along those lines, keep this in mind. We talk about trust, right? So we begin to take actions, right? And then let me do it this way, right? We take our actions, and then we take more actions. Right? Then we take more actions. So this means real things that I'm doing, right? And as I take these actions, right, there is a pathway of repair that is starting to take place. So how does someone repair when they break our trust? Is they have to take actions that shows that they can now meet that expectation that they broke. right? It's just like if if my car wasn't working, let's say the brakes weren't working. So my trust was broken. I trust my car to drive. I trust my car to do what it's supposed to do. My trust was broken. I go to get it repaired. I understand the price, and then I make the payment, right? And then as I use my vehicle, my trust grows. When I leave and I hit the brake a little bit to go out the driveway, my trust is growing. I go to drive down the street, I hit the brake again, my trust is growing. Then I go, I get on the freeway and someone's brake lights come on, I hit the brake and I don't hear no squeaking. And next thing you know, you're not even thinking about it anymore, right? You're just driving, right? I hope you understand that. After a while, you're not thinking about it anymore, you're just driving. Why? Because there's actions that are being taken that are proving that the repair was a true repair. Well, there's no different when we think about people, right? If I put a person here on the top of these blocks, we can have a victory with people too, right? We can decide that we are going to repair relationships as well, because the expectation is renewed. So when I go to that repair place and I say, my expectation is my brakes will work or whatever, I have to communicate. Imagine you just went to the shop and dropped the car off, right? The first thing they're gonna do is say, what happened? Tell me what's going on. How can we help you? So I have to communicate, right? Communicate the broken expectation. Once I've communicated that, I have to allow for repair. And then as I take actions on that repair, then I can get to a point where I trust again, right? So, and again, it still is an expectation-based trust, right? So a few things like that we've talked about here. So we talked about when we think about this whole episode, right? We talked about really clearly dealing with how we really, trust everyone. What do we mean? Trust everyone to be who they are. Trust everyone to be flawed, right? They're not perfect. Trust everyone to be able to meet an expectation agreed to. And then squeeze one in here, trust everyone to repair what's broken. So this just means I can trust that these things are possible, right? But back to saying trust people to be who they are, if someone consistently is not meeting that expectation, then, you have to realize, okay, this person is not, I can't expect that from them, right? They can't meet the expectation. This is who they are in terms of what I need versus what they're able to deliver, right? But I still can't give up on the fact that giving a person a chance to repair. So just like we talked about repair, you can take your car to a repair shop and they don't, they keep getting it wrong. Your brakes still don't work, right? You ain't gonna keep going there back to that place, you're not going to trust that place because they keep telling you they can repair it and they don't, right? And then we talked about trust no one, right? Trust no one to be perfect. Trust no one to be able to meet an expectation not communicated, right? Trust no one to be something that they aren't. And trust no one, another one I would put here, trust no one to be trust no one to be unable to be better if they choose. You have to believe those things are really possible, right? And so these are some things to keep in mind about trust everyone, trust no one. And a final thought I want to leave with you is this. So I want you to take a look at this. This is really a thought-provoking truth, right? Remember that, well, let me say this first. Trust is dealing with a belief about the future that you can't control, right? Because some people don't understand this and they have the wrong definition of what trust is. People are really trying to control the future, right? And when they can't control the future, they get frustrated. But when you understand that this is about managing expectations, and you look at this totally differently because you can't control the future anyway. As soon as you say future, you're not, nothing is promised or guaranteed. When you talk about controlling other people, nothing is promised or guaranteed. So when you try to control the future about other people and something happens, you're going to always be hurt. You're going to always, have an issue. But if you change this dynamic to think about that trust is something you do by actually managing the expectation more clear, being able to communicate, right? Teaching other people to communicate what they expect and getting the honesty out of them, right? The authentic thoughts from that person, and you be able to give the same. And when you're dealing in truth about what the expectations are, you're going to find that trust is a lot more reachable because of the expectation. And then within that trust, you're leaving room for flaws so that you can work through things and repair things when needed. So that brings me to this epiphany. When you think about trust, notice that at the center of it is us, right? It takes a mutual understanding of agreed upon expectations, right? And so there has to be a working together, whether that's a business relationship, a personal relationship, there's always an us factor, right? And now, of course, there's, like I talked about, trusting in things to work the way they're supposed to and all of that. But when we're talking about people, you got to understand it takes a mutual understanding of agreed upon expectations. And when you take trust and you put it in that lane, you'll start working on the right thing instead of working on things that are not really implementable and setting standards that are really not real. But when you start dealing in this, you'll find more success in creating greater trust and friendship with those around you. And you can choose what people you choose to have expectations for, and others, you just trust them to really be who they are, right? Whatever that may be. So I hope you got a lot out of this. This is a very interesting topic. There's so much we can talk about here, but you have enough to really think deeply about trust. And remember how there's a little bit of all of this in there, right? There's a little bit of everything. We trust everyone and yet trust no one. And remember some of those pointers that we talked about earlier. And as you take all that with you, make sure as you go out there and you face life, that you realize that you are the one that sets the expectation for your future. Choose wisely who you allow to be your friend, who you allow to get close to you, the things that you choose to do in your professional and personal relationships. Make sure you're really clear of what you want and what you're striving for and what you really, really desire, so that you can actually communicate that clearly. And the more you're able to communicate that clearly, you'll get some of those things coming back to you, meeting the expectation that you truly have in your heart. I'm Michael E. Parker. Until next time, we will see you here on You Are a CEO. Keep on running the business of you.